Erev Tov. Shavua Tov. So, just want to expand a little bit on something I started saying yesterday. So those who are here over Shabbat, this thing we started mentioning at Surah Shlishit, but really connects to the Midrash that Rabbi Wein quoted yesterday morning. Rabbi Wein alluded to, he didn't go into detail, but he spoke about in Breshit when it says, Na'aseh Adam b'talmenu kidmutenu. So everybody asks, what does it mean, Na'aseh Adam? Why is it written in the plural? Why not in the singular, right? One of the central tenets of our faith, Hashem Echad, U'Shmo Echad, that there is no multiplicity when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's one of the psukim. In fact, that's why when the rabbis had to translate the Torah, so they changed it so that it shouldn't, when they had to translate into Greek, it shouldn't say Na'aseh Adam. They made it Aseh Adam, so that people wouldn't get the wrong impression. Because the question is, if we could get the wrong impression, why does the Torah say it in that way? What does it mean, Na'aseh Adam? But many different interpretations are said in the Mefarshim. There are those that say that Na'aseh Adam, the Ramban, has an interpretation like this. He says everything that had been created until that point comes together to create man. And Hashem says, Na'aseh Adam, all the animals and all the beasts and everything that comes together, meaning that man has got within him the power and the potential to be like the angels, and he's got the potential within as well to be like the worst of the beasts, and we have sadly seen that in our days as well. That is one interpretation. But the Midrash has Rashi quotes throughout the story of Breshit as well, that many times that the Torah is Torah limda Torah derech eretz, that it's teaching us how the way to behave, that Hashem consulted, as it were, with the Pamalia Shalmana. He consulted with his entourage. Obviously, God doesn't need to consult, doesn't need to ask anybody for advice or what to do, but we do, and it's in order to teach us. And the Midrash over here, obviously Midrash is not meant to be taken literally, but the Midrash in Breshit Rabbah has this fascinating story of how man was created and the conflict that took place, again, amongst that heavenly entourage, whatever that means. As I say, Rabbi Wein gave one interpretation of it, but we'll suggest maybe something else as well. So the Midrash says the following. It says, Amar Rabbi Simon, B'shah sheba HaKadosh Baruch Hu livrot et Adam HaRishon, na'asu malachei hasharet kitim v'chabulot chabulot. The angels, as it were, the Malachei HaSharet, got into different groups, got into different factions, right, about whether man should be created or man shouldn't be created. We spoke once about how at Yam Suf, the similar language is said. Bnei Israel were in kitim, different groups, different factions. So the Malachim were in different factions. Mehem omrim ali bala, umehem omrim ibala. There were those who said he should not be created. There were those who said he should be created. Hada udichtiv chesed ve'emet nifgashu, tzedek v'shalom nashaku. So quote here the pasuk from Tehillim Pei. It talks about chesed and emet met, and tzedek and shalom kissed, as it were. So what are these? These are the four malachim. These are the four attributes which are having this discussion. There's chesed, we have emet, we have tzedek, and shalom. So we go through one by one. So it says the Midrash, chesed omer yibareh, shu gomer chasadim. Kindness, mercy, says he should be created. Why? He'll do chesed. He'll do chesed, and therefore that's makes sense that chesed says should be created. Okay, the emet omer, truth comes along and says, what do you think truth says? No ways. Al yibale, the kulo shekulo shkalim, full of lies. The world is full of lies, if you haven't noticed. Tzedek omer, justice says, Yibala, says he's going to bring justice into the world, act in a way that is just, again, tzedek, tzedakah, etc. And Shalom Omer, peace comes along and says, this is a problematic one. Al yibale, to kulek tata. You're going to create man, you think you're going to have peace, you think people are going to get along. That's not what's going to happen, conflict, strife, etc. So now the question is, okay, we have 2 versus 2, we have a teiku. So what are you going to say? Wait for Eliyahu to come and resolve it. Okay, well, what do you do? 2 and 2. So Masa Kadosh Baruch Hu. So what does he do now? He asked their advice. What should they do? 2 said yes, 2 say no. I would have said, okay, Kadosh Baruch Hu decides. He's got the swing votes, and then just say, but listen to how he decides. He doesn't want to disregard this the advice, so to speak. So it says, Masa Kadosh Baruch Hu, Natal Emet. So he takes emet, have to ask why specifically. Emet wasn't the only one. Shalom also said not to create, but he takes Emet and who said no, throws it to the ground. The Malachim turned to Hashem and said, what are you doing? How can you do that? Ribona olamim, mata mevazeh, tachsis, al tichseh shecha. You're what do you do? Taleh emet min haaretz. Let the truth come back. Let it come up. Adu dichtiv emet me'eretz tizmach. So that's the next pasuk from Tehillim that says emet, truth will sprout forth from the ground. Emet me'eretz tizmach. But the question is, obviously, what is going on in this midrash? And clearly it didn't happen literally, and there wasn't, a malach called Emet and a malach called Chesed, and they got thrown to the ground. That's not what happened. It's figurative. It's teaching us a message. But the question begs the question, if the whole point of saying Naaseh Adam b'tzameinu k'dmutenu is to teach us derech eretz, and it's to teach you that you should go and you should take advice and you should take counsel when you want to do something. So Hashem takes counsel. Two say yes, two say no. He takes the one who says what he doesn't like and he throws him down to the ground. It's cancel culture. This is where it begins. Is the message that if you take advice from somebody and they say something you don't like, you just ignore them, you beat them up, you throw them down? What's going on? That sounds very, very strange. So I think the way that we can understand this midrash, many explain that when it comes to emet, comes to the quality of truth, there is an emet that is in Shamayim, and there is an emet that comes from the Haaretz. Emet me'eretz tizmach. It means Kadosh Baruch Hu wasn't disregarding the midah of emet. He wasn't ignoring what it had to say. But it's demonstrating to us that there is an absolute truth up there, whatever that means. There's a truth, the subjective reality, this ideal reality, so to speak, in heaven. And there is reality the way it is on the ground. So when it comes to Psikat Halacha, for example, when it comes to Limud Torah, Rav Moshe Feinstein has in his introduction to Igrot Moshe, he says, the greatest fear of a posek, he says, I've got all these questions and I need to come and I need to give achra'ah and I need to say the halacha. He says, what if I get it wrong? What if I'm not able to match up? Lechaven la'amita shel Torah is the most challenging thing and the greatest thing that a posek can do. To get to the Gemara says, Kol dayan shetan din emet la'amito. Is like a shutaf of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Emet la'amito, to reach that level of objective reality, to reach that level of objective truth is excruciatingly difficult. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, what if then something which is mechuban, the objective truth in Shamayim is X, and I, in my psak, I come to the best of my abilities, and I come to Y. I come to something else. So he says, based on this, and based on this idea, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, he says, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He says there is an emet, what he calls, I think the language is, he says emet klapei shmaya and emet lahora'ah, or something like that. I think those are his words. He says there is that objective reality, but if I get there, that's emet la'amito. What Ravai says in his introduction to Rishut, he says that's what the emet la'amito means. There's an emet in Shamayim and there's an emet down here. He says Rav Moshe Feinstein, if the posek does his best and he's trained and he uses all the tools at his disposal and he gets to what he thinks is the emet, and that's the emet lahora'ah, even if you were to ask Kadosh Baruch Hu, you were to ask Neshama Shamala, they would have said something else. It doesn't matter. That's not what Hashem's interested in. He's interested in what comes here. The emet me'eretz tizmach. That's how he explains it. But so I think we can take this to what we discussed yesterday at Tzura Shlishit, for those who are here. I think that's exactly the point that's being expressed. Yesterday at Tzura Shlishit, we spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu smashing the Luchot. And the idea that, again, when you look at it at first glance, it seems to be you're taking these luchot, you're smashing them, it's in a fit of rage, it's, what's going on? And obviously, this is not in a fit of rage, as the Gemara tells us. Later on, Rashi quotes the Gemara that Hashem says to Moshe, as it were, Yeshakoach sheshibata. You did something good. You praised it to be commended for smashing those luchot. Why? Because after the Chet HaEgel, after the golden calf, that showed us there was a mashber, there was a trauma, there was a crisis, and yet, nonetheless, we can rebuild from that. Nonetheless, we can take those pieces and pick them back together. And I think that's exactly what's being expressed in this midrash. It's telling us that there is an emet in that world of Shemayim, that emet up there, that's not something that can stand in this world. That's not, we're full of this ktata and there's violence and there's wars and and lies and all sorts of things. There's a world of human beings is an imperfect world by definition. It has to be. It can't withstand. Emet and shalom, that's it. Don't create him. That emet and that shalom, that's not in this world. We can't have that. But there is Emet, Meretz, tizmach. There is within this imperfect reality, we have to do what we can to put those pieces together. And I think, where do we see the clue in this midrash that it's connected? So again, the language is, he took it and he threw it down to the ground. So you're all thinking ahead of me. Where do we find those words? That's exactly what the Torah says when Moshe Rabbeinu takes the luchot and he throws them down. That he threw them down. It's the same, those luchot being thrown and smashed, the same as that emet that's being smashed. And then ultimately the emet comes back up. Ultimately, those pieces of luchot, as we mentioned yesterday, luchot v'shivrei luchot munachim ba'aron, that is what we use, that is what we take to rebuild. So I just want to read to you something as well, which I saw a couple of weeks ago. Some of you may have seen it because it appeared in the Torah Tidbits, but a beautiful piece, which I think connects to this idea as well. So there's a picture. You'll see if you can see it. I don't know how well you can see the picture, but essentially what this picture is, it's a pottery mosaic thing that's being put together. And this was something which Sivan Rav Meir sent out in her daily WhatsApp message. So this one was translated into English, but I'll read it to you and you'll see how it connects to what we've been discussing. So this comes from Sharon Nagari. Sharon Nagari is the mother of Neria Nagari, Hashem Yikom Damo, who was one of the, I think it was a Chayal who fell on Simchat Torah this year. He was killed. And she sent these two pictures and she sent it to her and she says the following. She says a few days earlier, before she had taken these pictures, she went to a workshop of mosaic, putting these pictures together. And in order to create the mosaic, so first you have to take these pieces and you have to smash them in the round pic. You see all these little pieces ultimately form and they become a beautiful picture of pomegranates, etc. But tiny, tiny little pieces of rock, and you take the hammer and you smash them into these small pieces. And she says she was doing this, and as she was at this workshop, she was actually smashing these pieces. She says she's taking out all the energy that she has, all the pain, and expressing it in that way. And toch kadei, while things are breaking, and then she sticks them back together to make this picture. So she says she feels the depth of what is behind. This is not just an art workshop, but there's a deep message here. She says, my reality, and in a certain sense, some more and some less, and we have to be careful not to be not to be callous to the pain of others. Obviously, everybody at the level in which they experience it. But she says the reality was broken. And I'm picking up those broken pieces together. But I am not just collecting them, but I'm creating a new picture. She says, I truly believe this is what is required of me right now. This is the avodah. This is the requirement from Hashem and me from myself. To take the broken heart, to take the broken reality, and from that to create life. From that to create chayim chadashim v'acharim, a different life, a new life. It's not the same as it was before. But nonetheless, it is still life together. And that, I believe, is exactly the idea, exactly the message of taking that emet, of throwing it to the ground, of emet meretz tizmach, of those luchot, those broken luchot. Again, we get a second set of luchot. We don't rebuild the first set. We still have those pieces which we're able to build from them, but it's to build something new, to begin again, and to have hope that ultimately things can continue. אומר, הקדוש ברוך הוא צעקות ישראל, לפיכך בא להם תורה מצוות, שני מעדרך וצמן צדקו יגדיר תורה ויד.